Oh, you like what you see? Then you better stay watching this video! Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the Backoffice Teardown Lab. We have a great project for you today and I'd like to say a massive thank you for Derek, aka Flame Lily, for supplying this kit. And he's kindly put a web address here. This is what it is. It's the BlueSCSI and it's a SCSI emulator. So I've got a Sharp 68,000. Is it 68,000? Yeah, 68,000. That was kindly swapped to me by Mr. Gary Pinkett, and it's a great machine, but the problem is I don't have a hard disk for it, and it is a pain because it uses 5 1/4 floppies, which we know are a little bit fragile. So this device apparently lets you emulate a SCSI drive using the Blue Pill, which is an STM, I'm just trying to read it, STM32 based device, and you have a little MicroSD card reader. And that should help take away a lot of that pain because you'll be able to run all your software from the MicroSD card. And that's basically it. And it was brought to my attention by Chrissy because he's set one up. And what he has said though, for that Sharp use, you have these termination resistors. He said install some sort of headers so that you can insert them and remove them because they're a pain to remove. And because your mileage may vary. And of course they do go in a particular way round, so I've got to be careful with all of this. So I got some of these extra bits. Anyway, let's just crack on. I didn't look up the instructions because it does seem like there's so few parts, so I reckon I could have a go on it. Now the most disturbing one is the MicroSD, and the reason it's disturbing to me is that my favoured soldering iron tip has died and I've only got so many alternatives, and you can see a regular soldering iron is quite a big pitch, so I think we should start with that one. So the first thing I'm going to do is put plenty of flux down like so, and if you're doing this project I suggest you start with this too, so it's just a totally blank board, it's not wobbling around, it's not jumping about. Gives you the opportunity to give it the best you can be. So there we go. Now I'm just going to look for my tweezers, and if you don't have any tweezers, probably now would be a good time to buy them when you order this kit so that you can give yourself a fighting chance of getting it right. So you can see that's essentially what you want to do. Now fortunately around the edge of this you'll see a few of these tabs. These tabs go to the case, those little ones right there, and the corners here. So if you can get those corners sorted, the pins should be easy. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to line it up, and take your time. If it's not aligned, just keep going, keep trying. And it looks like the card slots in this way, so when we do come to soldering those pins, we want to make sure that they are pretty nicely soldered, because a bit too much solder in there might stop that from going in. Now I do have another soldering iron which does have a teeny tiny tip, so I'm going to try that one. I really don't get on with it, to be honest. I hate it, but for this it might be good. And you're probably wondering why I haven't replaced the actual proper tip of the soldering iron that I like, if I do like it so much. And the reason is it costs like £35 for the tips. I had no idea that's how much they were. So I really got used to using a chisel shaped tip that's just brilliant. In fact, I have the part number here. JBC, if you're watching, send me a C210018, and you can see it in there. It's this like chisely tip, and it's just so useful for everything. So if you're getting one of those fancy soldering irons, try to get them to send you some of those chisely tips, because that's the ones you'll be using the most if you're doing work on retro. We're almost there. So I've done the three of the 4 corners, and then there's just 2 more pads here. And I'm looking in the viewfinder actually. You can see these better than I can, so hopefully I'm getting in the right place. I'm not holding the soldering iron on there too long, just enough to melt it. So now's the critical parts, which are those little teeny tiny pins, and unfortunately I can't zoom in anymore. We're at maximum zoom, so maybe I can do some video trickery to get in a little bit further. But I'm just going to now very gingerly, you can see that there, holding the soldering iron just to the side of the pin, between the pin and the pad, like a wedge, and then I'm drifting solder down the tip. And that should do nicely. Frankly, how people do this with hot air and stuff, I don't know. I always think you melt those MicroSDs. But there you go, that's it. That was the worst over. We can all breathe a collective sigh of relief. Now let's eyeball up the other parts. Just test position those. So this is the SCSI interface. So that's going to go there. That's not too tricky. You can see in there all of those terminators. Again, be careful. You've got to get them the right way round. And there's a dot here. You see on the... you don't see because we're not close enough. You see? They're ended. They're sided. And you want to put them in that way. Now, be careful if you're going to put them in or not. Just sort of maybe leave those to the end. Because you might not be needing them for your particular use case. So what about this guy, which is pin 1 on this? Little distracted there, sorry, my phone was going off the hook. Anyway, let's solder on some of these main components so I can stop fiddling around with them. That's the orientation, by the way, of the power. There is an interesting one we're going to play with. The diodes are footprinted to go on the bottom, and the diode footprint's actually a little bit tight, to be honest, so we're going to work out that. But I'd prefer them to put them on the top, to be honest. I like all my components on one side, so we're going to work that one out ourselves. Let's just get soldering. So I'm going to take my other iron now, plug it in. It's not been used for a while. So this one doesn't have a fine chisel tip. It has a big gnarly hot tip like that, and that's going to be the one we're going to use. But to be fair, that probably emulates the one a lot of you guys are using at home, because we normally are soldering LEDs and stuff, so that's okay. But I've done everything with this, so whatever your soldering iron, you can really tackle any of these projects. Little surface mount stuff's fine, you just got to take more care, that's all. Okay, so that's the power jack soldered, but we do have this SCSI header. Now remember, there is a keyway on it. You can see that there, there's a notch. Put it the right way round, because I'm telling you, if you solder this one on wrong, there's no going back from that. You're better off just buying another kit at that point. Okay, so now you saw, you might have seen what I did there. I was holding the board while pressing the socket into the PCB, whilst also holding the solder and the iron all together at one, just to do a couple of tack solders. These aren't the best joints in the world. In fact, they're terrible because that one didn't even take. But you can see that there now. That one's done well enough. I'll come back to that. And now that is actually held in place. You can check it out. It's all flush. Good. And then we can position it whatever angle you like to work. I think this is okay for me. And I tend to just do things like hold it between two posts like that and then just work my way along. And I know it's jumping around a bit, so if you've got some helping hands, use them. And I know we've been talking about them for like 5 years and still I've not actually bothered to get a set. And they look so fancy now, the ones on Amazon. I do find things like old heavy tools like this quite useful though. That should just keep it at bay. In fact, I'll just retouch up one of those joints. Now that joint I just touched up was absolutely fine, but it didn't have the same amount of solder as the others, and that's going to annoy me. Look at that, it's not going to take long to build this whole kit. So I think you can actually buy these ready assembled if you need to, or want to. Like me, but I haven't got time. It's like, why am I going to waste time doing this? I just want to play with it, that's fine. You can get it from Derek. It's an open source project, so you can make it yourself. But if you look on the URL, as I posted here, scsi.blue, you can see all of the guys who are really supporting the project globally, and you can just ping them in your local region and see what your options are. And I suspect they're going to be very reasonable options. It's not a particularly expensive thing, but it gives you the option of some potentially interesting retro experiences, especially if you've got something like an old Mac, like an SE30 or a Mac Classic. All of those things use SCSI. And I'm wondering can you use these in Amigas and Atari STs? And I know Atari was a variant of SCSI, but it might be close enough. There we go. That's the main part done. So let's have a look at these diodes now. So I'll just show you the problem. So they're footprinted to go on the bottom, and they probably don't need to be this big, because I think they're probably just, I don't know, something to do with the termination or something. And you can see when you push them in, they really don't like to sit flat. And the problem you would have is trying to bend those legs tighter enough radius to do that. And you might have some surface mount ones, which is fine, just use those. Now I think the other option is this blue pill device is going to go on like that. You can see there's loads of room underneath it. So why not just mount them on the top? And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So you just check which way round they've got to go. And just to show you, I'm going to do a trick because I'm going to mount them, I think, diagonal. Let's see if they will fit diagonally across, because those two top pins are actually joined together anyway. Oh, I think you can, you know. That's getting pretty tight in there. Yep, got it. So you can get it in like that. In fact, what I'm going to do is just let's solder that one in. And I'm just going to top solder it. Uptown top solder in action. Boom, look at that. See, just like so. And I'm just going to double check that. Makes you wonder what they were doing, really. Oh yeah, no, so they're both going down to here and here and here, that's fine. And then I'm going to trim those leads from the bottom. You know what you could do? Now I've committed to putting them on the top, right? But realistically, you could put one diagonal that way on the top and the other one diagonally on the bottom, and that would be a totally legit thing. Ah, you know what? I'm really tempted to do that, but no. Let's have a look the other way. So my idea was basically to modify it slightly. So I'm just going to bend this leg over. I don't know now. I'm almost tempted to really go the other way. I'm almost convincing myself just go on the bottom. That'll be so cute. No, I'm going to go the other way for now. So I'm just going to do that because I think that'll work as well. So let's put this on there. So Derek, if you're watching, you could try my cross your heart bra style. I think that'll work fine for you, mate. If I can ever get this one soldered in. And this way is kind of a little bit more jank compared to the way I think I showed you, but oh, if you wanted to, you could actually push this wire down that hole. Will I do that? Should we try for fun? Go on. Got nothing to lose. There are no shortages of these diodes in the world. Let's pull it through. Look, watch. It's going to snap that right nice next to it. And that's what you want, just like that. Solder that up. Good opportunity to touch up the bottom solders while they're here. Okay. And if you're wondering, which you are, what you can do, because you might think, are you sure about that? It looks like it's going to short. It's like, yes, there's no problem with it shorting because they're both on the same thing. And in fact, just to make the point, I'm going to solder them together. Look, or try to. See, they're all one now. Doesn't matter. He says, hopefully, because he's going to bury them under this. And there, that goes on like that. And I think that would be quite neat too. So I'm going to put something underneath there to make sure it's stood up. And then run around this with my soldering iron. And I do think, looking at this, I will be trimming those. It's got quite long header pins here, which is a bit too long. I mean, you possibly could have had a socket. They're so long they almost look like they could have done with a socket. Again, solder it whichever style you like. Because they're a bit longer, I'm going sideways on now. And then I'm just feeding the solder through to the tip of the iron. So I'm applying the solder to the tip of the iron, not the post, but you can do whichever way you want. Look, that works too. Yeah. Oh no! There's a knot in the solder and it's getting nearer. It's turned into a pig's tail. It's okay, we survived. Such drama when you're soldering. Okay, right, now. So this is the bit at home where you've got to be careful. So if you are going to fit your terminating resistors, like I said, check the patterns on them. There is writing on them. So these two have the writing facing up to the camera. You might be able to see that. I'm just going to go zoomy zooms. See the writing facing the camera. And then I'm going to put two underneath with the writing facing away from the camera. And you're like, why is that? Well, the reason being, if you look at the PCB, you can see that these resistor terminators, I'm going to put them in, by the way, this way with the tweezers to show you. So these are, it's basically an array of resistors. So it's like fitting loads of resistors. And you can see there's a square. That should line up with that dot. And that's fine. That's how those go in. Now the ones on the bottom, the dot is actually on the other side. You see the bottom, the row has the dot facing the bottom. Hence, you have to turn them around. And if you don't turn them, in fact, turn them that way. If you don't turn them facing that way, it's not going to work for you. It's going to do something weird, and you don't want that happening. So make sure you get that part in right. So look, there's the label, and it's facing away from that SCSI socket now. Now flip them over and blast them with heat, which I'm not going to do right now because I don't want to fit these for particular reasons. Now I did notice there isn't in the kit the option for jumpers, so these here, these would be your termination jumpers, which actually enables and disables some of these, if not all of them. So I don't know why they're missing. Again, I might ping Derek on that. He might comment down below actually about that thing. Again, these particular configurations, I think that's where you need to speak to the guys at SCSI.blue and ask for that local support, because they'll know who's been using these in what and how they've had to set them up. But for me, I need to work out how to get these in some sort of a header. The dills I had, or rather the sills I had, didn't look like they would do the job, so I've got some dills that I'm going to make into sills, if that makes any sort of sense to you. Those look quite nice. Those will do the job. So I have to hack these down because they're far too long, and of course then I have to split them in half, but that's fine. You can see they'll do a great job. It's almost a shame you can't quite fit them. You could actually have fit these on the PCB and then just pop them in, but yeah. Again, if it's just such a weird configuration for the Sharp machines, then it's okay. Sorted them out, but I also found some more regular pin headers, so I thought I'll add those at the same time as well. So let's fit these bits in, these bad boys in first. Doesn't really matter which way you put these around as long as they go in. You have to be aware though when you're inserting those resistors about the ends, and that's fine because it says RN, 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 RN. The resistor networks are on the pin 1 ends, so the labels are on the pin 1 ends. It's going to be a bit of a squeeze. I might have to turn these around, so if they're back to back, you will get a little bit more room. I'll show you that up close. Because you can see the pins are on one side, so if you put them back to back, yeah, that's how they want to be. You could potentially even put a little bit of glue on them, glue them together before you fit them. Make your own slimline dip socket. Get in there. Oh, just like that. I still need to solder these though. So before I flip them over, I'm wondering if I can just push one of these in temporarily, just to keep them all lined up. No, I'm trying to push them across the two. Don't do that, that's bad. Let's just turn it over and figure out how to do it with our special technique. Our special technique being kind of hold too many things. That's close enough. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Come on. We'll get this, guys. We're going to get this. Come on. Yes. Oh, we've got... these are 4 independent things, though, so we do have to repeat this 4 times. Yep, I saw it. I saw it take some solder there. Bad soldering, that's what that is. Bad solder joint. It's not pretty, but it's good enough to finish the job. So let's get in there and tidy it up. I wonder what other walks of life there are where you can do a job nasty and then go back and finish it before you hand it over to the customer. Certainly not setting up rocket engines or aeroplanes. Yep, I fixed the engine on our Airbus. It's alright. I couldn't find the right bits, so I just cobbled something together, but we'll sort it out when you get to the next airport. Okay. No problemo. So these are slightly fiddlier because these are flat pins rather than normal round turned ones. But it's okay. I think we're going to be making the ultimate version of this because it will have all of the pin headers, all of the jumpers, everything good to go should they be required. Because frankly, once it comes off the bench and it's in among the equipment, I don't really want to see it back here. So this looks like a header for the actual blue pill. I think this is a serial programming header, which you probably don't need because you can do it over USB. It's got that USB built in, but let's put it. Why not? We're here. Maybe you can program it from your retro machine using serial. Wouldn't that be cool? So that's those done. A little bit of excess on there, let's take it off. And then you have a couple of jumpers here. Again, none in the pack, but if you need them you can easily buy them like that, just those jumper type components. And these are going to be extra fussy. So I'm going to have to do my little trick again, one last time. So the process after you've built this, and I don't really know much about it because I'm going to be doing this, later today or in the week, is you go online and you get an image which contains, I believe it's your filing system for the SCSI, and you have to program this. And I don't know if it comes pre-programmed, so that's what you want to check. Otherwise, you just have to run download the code on it, the firmware that does the whole emulation. And what that will do is it will emulate the SCSI to the host computer and have some sort of fat filing system driver on it, so it can look at the MicroSD card and do that side of things. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem. This is by far going to be the worst part. And again, ask Derek. He might be able to give advice on that, or maybe, I don't know, maybe do you one with a card all pre-programmed, everything good to go. That's quite nice. It's quite a nice little heavy unit when you're done. So I'm going to show you these going in, even though I'm not going to use them necessarily right now. That's why I've socketed them. But I'm just pushing one in. See how that goes. Yeah, that was fine, absolutely fine. So I'm going to show you the next one. And I am putting these the correct way, by the way, just in case you were wondering. I'm going to use my tweezers, of course, though, because it's just that little bit snug in there. But it's not really a problem. You can see it just pushes down with normal finger pushing pressure. Get the nice heel line. That should be fine. To be honest, that should be fine. That'll work well. So there, you can repeat with these. Now, hopefully that's been of some use to you. Again, sorry for my lack of knowledge, but BlueSCSI, https scsi.blue. If you're in the UK and Europe region, I don't know, Derek Flame Lily, aka Flame Lily on Twitter, where he's operating, but he definitely will let you know on Twitter. Just ask him. Ask him all the stuff. I'm going to go off now and learn about what I have to put on the microSD card and how to actually shove it in the machine. Oh, there is one thing though, before I go, yeah, I'm also going to do this and just trim these off a bit later. As ever, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.